The views, information, and opinions expressed in Forum 360 are those of the guests and hosts and not those of PBS Western Reserve, its partners, or underwriters.
Welcome to Forum 360. I'm your host, Leah Love, where we have a global outlook from a local view. I am so excited today because it's not often we get to talk about the journeys, the behind the scenes of who we see representing us. And today we have Representative Veronica Sims of Ohio House District 33, and she's going to talk about her political journey. So welcome.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, can you share a little bit about your background and what shaped your early years?
So I'm a lifelong Akronite, born and raised here in Akron, Ohio. Grew up in the Summit Lake community. I tell people I grew up in Summit Lake, but not quite the lake. But I am the fourth child of six, born to my lovely parents. I don't know if I had language to say at that age that I wanted to be a public servant. Of course, I had visions of one day being the President of the United States for as long as I can remember. But I was always just very interested in community and how community works to make things better, how it works to lift each other up. I think that was the grinding part. My mom was very active in the PTA. She was all about the kids, and so if you weren't doing right by the kids, you're gonna have a problem with Elaine. And so one of the things I really enjoyed, not at the time, but in hindsight, she was so actively engaged, and we were witnesses to that. So much they called her Mama Brown, which was, like as a kid, like she's not your mother, she's mine. My dad, so my mom worked most of her career in the public school system. My dad was a welder at Babcock's and Wilcox. So I had a very stable home, and I would say that was very community focused. I have three sisters and two brothers, and so having, that kind of makeup. I always say we didn't have a whole lot of loot, but there was lots of love. And there was a focus on being excellent and giving your best. So I think that's.
Would you say that you were always outspoken, or did that kind of develop as you?
I think I was always outspoken. My little sister, my youngest sister, I shouldn't call her my little sister, always had this little thing, and she would say how they would call her Miss Brown. She's in the third grade, but I think part of that, she was so tenacious, and I think I could say that for most of us, they would call her Miss Brown, and I knew that because I got the same thing. I don't think they were saying it to be mean, but just acknowledging there was something about our tude that was a little different.
Okay, well, tell me this. Was there a moment or an experience in your childhood that planted this seed for public service? Or not even maybe as you were going along, was there a moment that you can remember?
I say this often, and I know it almost seems like a coined phrase, but I was always in awe of the power of people who just decide they want differently, to put their hands to the proverbial plow and push towards that thing. And I saw that in the community that I lived in, and then saw it in my own parents. So I don't know if there was one thing. I think if I'm honest, it's in my DNA. So I came here with this. I'm grateful for my upbringing because my parents exposed me to people that were like me. And so, it wasn't easy to turn me around because I I don't speak the way you do, or I don't do things the way you think I should do them. So I would say those were keys to really setting in motion the me that I became. So I was a criminal justice political science undergrad and mastered in public administration. I think my push towards criminal justice was just watching family members who, or people I knew in the neighborhood who somehow got caught up in the system, and there were no real redemptive pathways back. And I just couldn't believe that somebody could have an encounter, return to a community at 20, 21 years old, and their life was over. And so that really sparked my interest in the whole justice. But again, I think that it was in my DNA. I came here allergic to injustice.
I love that.
And so
allergic to injustice.
Yeah, and so it's just a part of who I am.
So tell me, what was your first public servant position, and how did that even come about and go?
I think anytime you're offering service, whether that's in a formal position that someone's sanctioned, or that you see something that needs to be righted, or that you think that you can add some value to, and you participate in that, I think that's public service. But I really got my official start as the executive director of the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus, and that came from an encounter. Dr. Vernon Sykes at the time had met him, had some discussion. I can't tell you the full story. It's a good story, but time won't permit that. Who saw, I think, really saw in me what my parents and siblings had already nurtured in me, and was willing to give me a go at opportunities that would not necessarily, I don't believe, would have been afforded me. Who was more interested in seeing me develop what he saw than he was me having a whole lot of experience. And I like to say the rest is a proverbial history.
So what challenges did you have as you prepared for this new leadership role?
So I don't know if I've had the privilege to serve on the Akron School Board, Akron City Council. I served as the first Black woman to serve as president of Summit County Council, both president and vice president, and now here at the state level. I like to say, honestly, that I don't know if I necessarily prepared per se. My faith has always been very important to me, and I've always, as long as I can remember, tried to listen to that voice and the call on my life. I think what's allowed me to be in this place called here, that I had the unmitigated gall to believe what the voice was saying and follow it. And so, I've been extremely blessed in that, and I've never been very apologetic about that because it's the truth.
Okay, we kind of ran over that a little bit quick. Tell me each position that you said you just had in order.
So I served on the Akron School Board.
Okay.
I served as a city councilwoman at large in Akron City. I served as the 5th County Council, 5th District, both as vice president and president before I went to, for 2 terms before I went to the Ohio legislature, and now serving in the Ohio legislature. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yes.
So you just mentioned Dr. Vernon Sykes. Did you have any others who helped guide you along the way?
I think, again, I go back to my upbringing, the community that I lived in, you know, and the exposures of my parents. You know, there are always women specifically in my life who may not have been living in the public view, but they were creating good space in their homes and in the communities that they lived. And they were tenacious, and they were focused, and really women that that I wanted to emulate or some part of their life. And I think I bring all of those things with me even now. Did I have a mentor? Not one, but I would use that language around. Where there are people that I watched, I would say yes, both male and female, that inspired what I am today. I honestly believe that we are all born with a purpose. I believe that we all are trees. I believe that we all start from a seed, and how we develop, how we flourish, whether we reach our full bloom, is contingent. It's contingent on where we're planted, the soil around us, how we're watered, if we're watered. And when those things do not happen in the way that they should, they can really thwart our growth. I have been blessed, again, to be planted in some good gardens. I mean, I'd say even you, watching you and the way that you inspire in just the world in which you operate, you know what I mean? I really do count it a privilege to be here talking to you. I've always admired you, and I don't think I've ever hesitated to say that. And I think it's not any necessarily that people who have walked this journey before who said, "Hey, why don't you come along with me?" It was people who saw, you know, things that I didn't see, who helped me along. I think about those people who have walked similar journeys, like a Barbara Sykes, like a Lyndell Mobley, and Margot was kind of like not necessarily, well, yeah, she was before me, but I mean, to see people like, to have a county executive that's a woman who are breaking barriers. I mean, there's just women all around us, but I have to say too, but it hasn't, again, been those people. It's the everyday people. Everyday people who are passionate about what they are passionate about, especially those who would dare look beyond their own immediate needs to see the needs of other people. I grew up I was a part of the community action movement, the maximum feasible participation of the poor, to make sure that we're not letting things happen to them, but that things are happening with them, that they have a voice in how do we move from this place of insufficiency to having enough.
I like that, a voice. And if you are just tuning in, we are talking to Representative Veronica Sims of Ohio House District 33 about her political journey. So, in being a voice for people, have you had any defining moments along your career that you felt like I really made an impact for somebody who was voiceless?
Oh yeah, I think that's my whole life, and I don't necessarily tally it, I just know it when it's happening, because it's happening every day.
Do you have any recent stories or?
Just any, I think the thing that probably tugs on my heart the most is when I can't get people, the resources that they need. Sometimes there's one thing, I think it's just being intentional to remember there are people who live differently than you. Doesn't make them better than you, and it doesn't make them less than you. And to be sensitive enough to know, although it's not a prioritized need for you, it's a need for them, and that it makes a difference in their lives. I don't care whether it's I need to get food, or I need a letter of recommendation from someone, or that my child is in the penitentiary, they've been ill, I haven't been trying to make those connections to bring a sense of, I do see you, I do represent you, but also to add to their peace and their confidence in systems that sometimes they're not as confident in. To be able to play a role and represent that connection, I think is priceless. And going back again, I don't tally it, it just happens every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good to know. What do you think people misunderstand most about the work that you do? Or the work that public servants, politicians, everyone does?
I think today, people assume a lot because social media is so much more plentiful. But, excuse me, mm-hmm. I think we underestimate what people understand, right? They may not know all of the integral pieces that happen on a day-to-day, but they understand a lot more. Do we need to do a lot more to help them better understand so that they're participants in the process? Absolutely. But I think by and large, people are pretty informed. Is it always the right resource? No. But they are trying because they want to know. So, but I think sometimes they think that, that Congress and, the state legislature is the same, right? So, we'll get all kind of calls about federal government, or I'm sure they get calls about us. And so I think those are confusing things.
What would you say to define that for people for today?
The
Congress versus state.
The U.S. Congress, and I just remind them that we have local, we have state, and we have federal, and just kind of lay those things out. So what happens? They almost mirror one another. We have a court system, we have an administrative system, we have a legislative body at the local level, which is your city councils, your mayor, your township leaders, and then your court systems, and those just trying to help them understand that happens at every level of government.
I think one of the things I always get confused about is which court can overturn another court, and I'm like, well, what is that? So
yeah, that's a job for some judge.
Yeah. But those are just some of the thoughts that I have. Sometimes I get confused about. Okay, so what should young people know about navigating the political process and space if this is what they want to do?
One of the things I want to say, I am so very inspired by this generation. They know a lot. What I believe for us all, if we're going to really and truly make good public policy, we have to think more intergenerationally. I think people often ask me the question, what can I do if I don't want to run for public office? I often respond by saying, grow where it is that you're planted. It's enough, really. And even if you're not seeking a public office, figure how you can engage organizationally. Please, if you're not participating in an organization, do that. One, it connects you to information and helps you to engage better around those things that are important to you. So you don't feel the anxiety of not knowing. Now, should you know, I have this whole thing, I remember Holy Spirit just sharing with me, is everything you need to know, you can know if you're willing to do what it takes to know it. But everything you want to know ain't something that you need to know, right? And so know the difference, right? Because it can be very, very stressful. I'd say even if you're living in a community and you don't run around for public office, but you're a small business person, I mean, engage in some of the legislative processes at the local level and at the state and federal level. Attend city council, find out when, certain committees are meeting, and go there and learn. And if you anything else, I mean, get a PTA, a membership. You know what I mean? We all live in school districts. Find a school that you want to do some support in their cluster, and just get a membership and become a part of that. So.
That's good to know. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing our community today?
There is I think, often a lingering sense of hopelessness, or when will things get better? When will, our material conditions change? But by the same token, I also see this hope that just rings eternal among every generation. So I think there's a combination of those days where there's a lot of people feeling overwhelmed and not being able to really feel as if they can see their way forward. But there's still an undergirding sense of hope, I think, that we really need to nurture so that it continues to spread.
And then what would you hope your legacy would be when people look back at your journey?
People talk about a legacy. I really don't. I've been so incredibly blessed. I say this, I keep saying it because it's true. And, I've been married for 30 years. I have a daughter, and I have my first granddaughter that I never really think about a legacy. You know what I mean? Because I don't necessarily see myself as that kind of deal, right? But if there were things I want people to remember, is that I really cared, and that, I wasn't afraid to speak truth, even at cost to me, if it was that important, that no matter, and I share with you the opportunities that I've had to matriculate through this whole elective official cycle, that I stayed connected to community, and that meant something to me, and it was evident in the work that I did.
Okay. One last question. Do you have any resources for people who want to get involved, or for the youth that want to get involved? I know you said the organizations. Are there any other resources that they should be looking at?
I think, I think that we have to kind of flip the switch a little bit, and stop having young people look for us and figure out how we look for them. There are a lot of incredible organizations, and there's a lot of incredible opportunity to expose young people to. I was on a trail walk just the other day, and just realized as a young person, I didn't even know these resources exist. And I can only imagine how exposure can spark something in a young person that they didn't even know that's in there, because that's all part of the growth cycle. That's a part of how you become who you are. It's the exposures that actually trigger something in you. Really, it's not we came here as empty boxes with not purpose. That's not true. It's like Prego, I say. It's like in there. It just needs to be exposed to that connector that really sets that spark into some small fire or a blaze. And so just figuring out better ways of how not only that young people connect to us, but how we do a better job of connecting to them.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.